Aloha, everyone.
Excuse
Welcome. We have
someone knocking.
someone knocking. Well, welcome, everyone. This is a joint hearing with the Committee on Labor, Culture, and the Arts and the Committee on Human Services. At this time, I'd like to introduce the members of the Labor, Culture, and the Arts Committee. They are Senator Ihara, the Vice Chair, who's behind me. Also online, I believe we have Senator Chang. Not sure about Kohala, and Senator Favela is also a member. The Human Services Committee, Senator Ihara also serves as Vice Chair of that committee. Members of that committee include Senator Estakio, Senator Misalucha, and Senator Favela.
And chair.
And the chair, oh yeah, sorry, and
I'm
chair.
also present.
The main person, the chair, Senator San Buenaventura. We do have another, the Labor Committee also has a couple of bills at 3 o'clock, but we will be hearing those bills following this joint hearing. This meeting, including the audio and video of remote participants, is being streamed live on YouTube. You will find links to viewing options for all Senate meetings on the live and on-demand video page of the legislature's website. In the unlikely event that we have to abruptly end this hearing due to major technical difficulties, the committees will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business. Is it okay for Friday, February 12th at 3 p.m. in room 225?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I don't believe we're going to do a time limit today. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. Also, if you would like to submit late written testimony, we will accept it until midnight today. So midnight this evening. So with that, let's proceed to the bills for the joint hearing. Today is Monday, February 8th. It's 3:05 roughly. We are in conference room 225. First up, we have Senate Bill 1270. This is relating to the Workforce Development Council. It replaces the Director of Human Services with the Administrator of the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, Department of Human Services, as an ex officio voting member on the Workforce Development Council. So for testifiers who have been approved, we have Workforce Development Council, Allison Tasaka, Executive Director. Allison?
Hi, good afternoon. Chair Taniguchi, Chair Buenaventura, Vice Chair Ihara, members of the joint committees. Allison Tasaka, Executive Director of the Workforce Development Council, testifying in strong support of this measure. This basically is a housekeeping measure to amend our Chapter 202 to comply with a federal regulation that we became aware of that makes no disruption to our council membership. It will remain comprised of 41 members. So just ask that you can help us make this amendment so we could comply with our federal regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tasaka. Next testifying for DHS, we have Kathy Betts, the Director.
Kathy is not in the Zoom call.
Okay. And we have additional testifier in support. Okay. Do we have questions from members? Let's see. Okay. If not, we will proceed to the next bill. This is Senate Bill 793 relating to the minimum wage. It increases the minimum wage to 17, oh no, it's the wrong one, sorry. This is relating to the minimum wage. It repeals the exemption of persons with disabilities from minimum wage requirements. Okay, first up we have for the State Council on Developmental Disabilities, Daintree Bartolis.
Hi, I'll be standing in for Daintree. Aloha Chair Taniguchi and Chair San Buenaventura and committee members. My name is Chase Silver. I am the Legislative Liaison at the Hawaii State Council on Developmental Disabilities. I'll keep this brief. I just wanted to highlight 2 points in our written testimony, which is that we've followed up with the agencies that hold the 14C certificates, and we can verify that there is no one really being paid some minimum wage within the state of Hawaii. And so that if this measure were to go through, you would not be taking away jobs from anybody. We knew that that was a concern from last session. The second part I'd like to highlight is that this is a civil rights issue. This is a practice that was kind of incorporated into the state in the 1930s before the civil rights movement, and it's a dated practice, and it's about time to get rid of it. Thank you so much for the opportunity to provide testimony.
Thank you very much. Next we have the Department of Labor Industrial Relations Director Ann Estakio.
Aloha Chair Taniguchi, Chair San Buenaventura, and Vice Chair Ihara, Joanne Bidikar, Deputy Director, for Director Estakio. And we stand on our testimony available for comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We also have testifying for the National Federation of the Blind, Brandon Young.
Hello, good afternoon. My
Good
name is
afternoon.
Brandon Young with the National Federation of the Blind, and I just want to testify in support of this measure. Our organization is definitely interested in ending the payment of some minimum wages, and we're just grateful that the DD Council and other organizations has been willing to join us in this effort.
Okay, thank you. We also have testifying from the National Federation of the Blind, Melissa Gerber. Melissa Gerber. Not on, I guess, huh, Lisa? Okay. Okay. Okay, those are our testifiers. Do we have any questions from members? Okay. If not, we will recess the joint hearing, and I guess we'll go into a meeting room. Welcome back. This is the joint hearing for the Committee on Labor, Culture, and the Arts and the Committee on Human Services. We have just heard testimony on 2 bills, and so we'll be in decision-making for both bills. Senate Bill 1270, relating to the Workforce Development Council. Both chairs will recommend that we pass this bill as is. Is there any discussion? If not, Senator Ihara.
Okay, we're voting for the Labor Committee only first. On the Chair's recommendation to pass Senate Bill 1270 unamended, Chair Taniguchi.
Aye.
Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Chang.
Aye.
Senator Kohala.
Aye.
Senator Favela.
Reservations?
Reservations. The recommendation is adopted, Chair.
Okay, so for Human Services, same recommendation. Vice Chair for the vote.
We're voting on the Human Services Committee Chair's recommendation to pass Senate Bill 1270 unamended. Chair Buenos,
Chair votes aye.
Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Estakio.
Aye.
Senator Misaluka.
Aye.
Aye. And Senator Favela. Reservations?
Hold on, what is it, 793?
No, 1270?
No, 1270, yeah,
1270.
1270.
Yes, right, okay. Recommendations adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. We'll proceed to Senate Bill 793. This is relating to the minimum wage. It repeals the exemption of persons with disabilities from minimum wage requirements. Both chairs have discussed this and will recommend that we pass with amendments. We'll adopt the Ramsier changes recommended by the department and make technical, non-substantive amendments. Any discussion? If not, Senator Ihara for the Committee on Labor, Culture, and the Arts.
Okay, for members of the Committee on Labor, we're voting on the Chair's recommendation to pass Senate Bill 793 with amendments. Chair Taniguchi.
Aye.
Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Chang.
Aye.
Senator Kohala.
Aye.
Senator Favela.
Aye.
Recommendations adopted.
So for Human Services, same recommendation. Vice Chair for the vote, Chair votes aye.
We're voting on, for Human Services Committee to, on the Chair's recommendation to pass Senate Bill 793 with amendments. Chair Buenaventura, aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Estakio.
Aye.
Senator Misalucha.
Aye.
Senator Favela.
Aye.
Recommendations adopted.
Thank you, members. We'll recess the joint hearing and we'll proceed in a few minutes with our regular Labor Committee agenda. Welcome. This is the Committee on Labor, Culture, and the Arts. We have a hearing today on 3 bills. Today is Monday, February 8th, 2021. It's about 3:20. This is for a 3 p.m. hearing. We're in conference room 225. So, I guess again I'll introduce my members for the public who may be watching. I'm Chair Brian Taniguchi. Senator Ihara is my Vice Chair. Senator Chang is on the committee. Senator Kohala is on the committee. And Senator Favela is also on the committee. As I mentioned, we have 3 bills today. We'll begin with Senate Bill 676. This is relating to the minimum wage. It increases the minimum wage for certain employees to $12 per hour beginning July 1st, 2022. First up, we have the Department of Labor Industrial Relations Director, Ann Estakio.
Aloha Chair Taniguchi, Vice Chair Ihara, and members of the committee. Joanne Bittenhart for the Director. We have our testimony that we stand on, available for any questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have Maui Chamber of Commerce, Pamela Tompap.
She's not present, Senator.
Okay. Testifying for the Hawaii Restaurant Association, we have Mr. Victor Lim.
Hi, good afternoon, Senator Taniguchi and Senator Ihara and members of the Committee on Labor and Culture and Arts. Hi, my name is Victor Lim and I'm the legislative lead for the Hawaii Restaurant Association, representing about 3,400 restaurants here in the state of Hawaii. Many of our membership is really in dire straits. As you can see, more than 43% of the membership really don't think that they could survive for another 6 months unless they have federal assistance and state assistance. We are probably one of the hardest hit economy, and we need time to recover from this pandemic. All the economic experts point out that the state economy will take at least 3 to 4 years to recover. We really, at this point in time, cannot absorb any additional costs, knowing the fact that we're going to have a lot of other bills targeting the small business community. And really, we really feel that the timing is just not right right now for us to be discussing any increase in the minimum wage. When you raise the floor to $12, you really also force everybody above $12 to also go up, because we will have to do some kind of a compression to make sure that job descriptions, job status coincide with what is the starting wage at that particular point in time. And really, the timing is really bad. And really, we really ask you to please do not entertain any additional cost increase that's going to hit the small businesses. Thank you very much for allowing us to share our point of view. Aloha.
Thank you, Victor. Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii, Sherry Menor McNamara.
Good afternoon, Chair Taniguchi,
Good afternoon.
Vice Chair Ihara, and members of the committee. Sherry Menor McNamara here with the Chamber of Commerce Hawaii. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify. Our position today is that we do not support Senate Bill 676, which increases the minimum wage. We are a statewide business organization that represents more than 2,000 businesses statewide, and 80% of our membership is small businesses. We believe a proposal to increase the minimum wage during this pandemic sends a wrong message about efforts to support economic recovery during the greatest and most devastating economic recession in history. Our focus must be the survival of our existing local businesses whose doors are still open. Simply put, if businesses close, jobs will be lost, families will be impacted, the state will lose substantial tax revenue, our local quality of life will be diminished, and the small business landscape will be forever altered. Moreover, a raise in the minimum wage will negatively impact businesses, especially industries that have been hardest hit due to shutdowns and restrictions, and that includes the restaurant, retail, and attractions industries. And these are not just anecdotal. We did a Pulse of Business survey that was conducted by our Hawaii Chamber of Commerce Foundation, as well as OmniTrack. And it showed that revenues fell more than almost an average of 50% from 2019 to 2020, and a significant difference between Oahu and, not a significant difference, excuse me, between Oahu and neighbor islands. And almost half reduced their workforce, and it would have been higher if they did not receive PPP loans. Businesses had to cut jobs, and more so on the neighbor islands, just because of a close connection to the tourism industries. Even then, small businesses have done everything they can to keep employees on payroll and pay health insurance, owners removing themselves from payroll, and still continue to find ways to support community efforts, whether it's food drives or other charitable organizations and efforts. Furthermore, unlike other states, Hawaii is the only one in the country that requires employers to pay health care coverage for all employees who work 20 hours or more per week. This costs an average $6,000 per employee annually, adding a minimum of at least $3 per hour to each employee's hourly wage. Additionally, an increase in wages is tied to increased costs for other mandates such as workers' comp, temporary disability, unemployment insurance, payroll taxes, and other voluntary benefit programs. Add this up, we are talking more than $12 an hour. And as Victor said from Hawaii Restaurant Association, we deal with wage compression, which will seriously force many businesses to look at job cuts. The chamber did support an increase in minimum wage last session, and COVID hit. Even if this bill only increases the minimum wage to $12 next year, businesses need to forecast and do their budgeting. Having this on the radar of additional costs would definitely force many of them to rethink and act upon the business model and benefits. Given the current crisis, we cannot support any increase until our economy returns to pre-pandemic levels, which according to UHERO could take years. We respectfully urge the committee to defer this bill for the time being and collectively focus on economic recovery. Thank you, and thank you for your time and the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Ms. Menor. Highway in, Russell Ryan.
Yeah, good afternoon, Senators Taniguchi and Hara and members of the committee. I'm Russell Ryan with Highway in. Been around here since 1947, and I joined the business 7 years ago, and as I'm married into the business. If you're wondering that I don't look like the original family owner. Restaurants are competitive businesses for both customers and labor. The current labor market for full service restaurants in Hawaii is already over $15 an hour. Remember, restaurant wages comprise of a base wage, which can be the minimum wage. You have to add tips, we have service charges, as Sherry mentioned, we have healthcare, we have PTO, and we have 401k contributions. Our internal average is close to $20 already. That's because the market is demanding that for the service we provide. In 2017, our highest paid worker was a full-time server whose W-2 was over $72,000. And she made a minimum wage of around $18,000, and she also made about $55,000 in tips. Now, the key point here is when we're forced to raise the minimum wage, for the most part, that minimum wage is going to flow to this highly compensated group of employees. And it will miss the mark because it's not going to get the lower income people who are currently paying around about $14 to $16 per hour. Moreover, restaurants will simply raise their prices in response to any input costs. Labor in the restaurant business is a large portion of our costs, thus a 10% rise in labor costs is going to force us to increase menu prices by 3 to 5%. We also will get a higher cost from our vendors. When menu prices rise, demand for meals is going to fall because customers have alternative choices. Total revenues will diminish. Fewer customers will come in. Fewer customers equals less people on our payroll. We'll also look to pivot even further to put in labor-saving initiatives. And the thing I really want to stress here is we already lose employees to businesses that pay under the table and do not comply with all the rules and regulations that are in place. And more companies will opt to be non-compliant and run the risk of getting caught in order to pay their bills. Lower income also means lower GET income for the state. Our lower profits will show up in lower taxes for the state. Customer choices will diminish as restaurants fail, the marginal restaurants go out of business, and tourists are going to have less places on which to spend their money. So recent experience has shown that the government knows exactly how to put money into people's pockets through direct stimulus checks. If you use businesses as the arm of government to effect this, the amount of, you say you put 100 in, you're only going to get about 3 or 4 that is going to its intended target. It is much more efficient and effective to do direct stimulus checks or use the existing tax policies to address this particular form of legislation. Lastly, I just want to talk about the federal government already has the tip wage, and it also has flip-flopped recently on tip pooling. Now, tip pooling allows for tips that are given to the server to be shared among all workers as opposed to just the person receiving the tip, just the person taking the order. I would call for a very aggressive tip wage such that we can reinvigorate the restaurant sector. Now remember, just like Washington has a Congressional Budget Office, which calculated recently that a raise to $15 per hour will reduce jobs by $1.3 million nationwide, Hawaii needs to do a similar analysis as it contemplates raising the minimum wage, because you will likely find raising the minimum wage will have unintended consequences, and it will disadvantage exactly the people that you're trying to address with this particular legislation. Thank you for allowing me to provide this opportunity to talk, and I hope you all will be customers at Highway Inn in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Hawaii Food Industry Association, Lauren Zerval.
Thank you, Chair Taniguchi and Vice Chair Ihara. I'm Lauren Zerval on behalf of Hawaii Food Industry Association, which is comprised of 200 member companies representing grocery stores, retailers, suppliers, producers, distributors of food and beverage related products in the state of Hawaii. HFIA is in opposition to this measure. The fact is that raising minimum wage will force more Hawaii businesses to cut staff and or close. Our state has been the hardest hit by the economic crisis caused by COVID-19, and we have already seen dozens of businesses close. Many local businesses have been job providers and staples in our communities for years, and they have already closed. Large chains have weathered the storm because they can take advantage of the economies of scale and rely on profits from the mainland where they have not suffered the economic losses that we have here. Local businesses do not have this option. An increase in the minimum wage now will disproportionately impact these local Hawaii businesses, and for some, this challenge will be too much to overcome. Raising the minimum wage at a time when it could cause businesses to close and eliminate jobs is self-defeating. In order to continue to provide jobs, serving their communities, paying taxes, and driving the local economy, our local businesses need time to recover from this pandemic. This bill is not the right choice, and for that reason, we ask that it be held. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Lauren. We have the Kona Kohala Chamber of Commerce, Wendy Laros.
Aloha, Chair Taniguchi and the Senate Committee on Labor, Culture, and the Arts. My name is Wendy Laros. I'm the President and CEO of the Conocoholic Chamber of Commerce. Our chamber opposes this bill. We have nearly 500 members. Our chamber represents businesses in the Kona and Kohala districts, which is on the west side of the island of Hawaii, and the tourism industry is what drives our economy. Our businesses have been especially hard hit in 2020 due to COVID impacts, and it's resulted in substantial loss of business. And although the Safe Travels Hawaii program allows for travelers to bypass the now 10-day quarantine with their negative test in hand, the visitor count, the customer base, continues to be extremely low. I think that's one thing that we really need to talk about, because we really don't have customers. So our businesses don't have customers, and it's not just the hotels and the resorts. We have 60% of our members with 10 or fewer employees. So small businesses, those that cater to the visitor experience, whether it's retail, restaurants, activities, tours. Also there's farming and fishermen too. And so we've got a lot of businesses here that just can't take an increase in the cost of doing business. And a few things as far as numbers, based on a recent University of Hawaii Economic Research Organization, UHERO's annual Hawaii forecast, Hawaii Island visitor arrivals by air in 2019 were at 1,763,000. In 2020, we had 462,000. And there's only going to be another, as far as a forecast, 766,000 visitors. That's 1 million less than we had in 2019. And again, what I'm saying, that is 1 million less customers. So for the businesses here, there's going to be significant struggle all through the next year and in 2022. So it's just, this is not the time to increase the cost of doing business. This is the time to create policies for Hawaii's economic recovery so that businesses can survive into the future and provide jobs. The Conocoholic Chamber of Commerce exists to provide leadership and advocacy for a successful business environment, and we hope that this bill will not pass at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Laros. Living Wage Hawaii, Nate Hicks.
Aloha, and thank you for having me and for hearing this bill. Raising the minimum wage here in Hawaii helps our economy, it helps workers, and it helps small businesses. When the minimum wage increased from $7.25 in 2014 to $10.10 in 2018, workers at all income levels saw their earnings increase faster than wages nationwide and faster than inflation. This was a change from the previous 4 years when local wages grew slower than wages nationally and also slower than inflation, meaning workers were poorer than they were before when the minimum wage was not increased. Again, raising the minimum wage helps workers and it helps small businesses. With workers earning more money and spending it here locally from 2014 to 2018 when the minimum wage was increased, the number of small businesses in Hawaii also increased. The number of small businesses increased over that time, as did the number of employees that they had. The restaurant industry in particular saw an increase of 20% in their wait staff over this time. Again, raising the minimum wage helps workers and it helps small businesses. Unemployment rate here in Hawaii was near all-time lows in 2018. Hawaii's economy overall grew at a faster rate during this time period as opposed to when the minimum wage was stagnant. When the minimum wage was stagnant, Hawaii's economy grew slower than the nationwide economy. When the minimum wage was increased, our economy as a whole grew faster than the national economy. Raising the minimum wage helps workers and it helps small businesses and our economy overall. The 8 states that are on their way to a $15 minimum wage increased their minimum wage this year and are doing so next year as well. The time is right to raise the minimum wage as it helps our economy. This will be a boost, a well-needed boost, a well-deserved boost to help us pull ourselves up. Democrats across the nation understand this, including President Biden, who are all supportive of trying to raise the minimum wage to at least a $15 minimum wage. With a Democratic governor and 2 chambers full of Democrats, it's absolutely necessary that here in Hawaii, the most expensive state in the nation, we cannot sit at $10.10 anymore. A $17 minimum wage, $17 is the living wage necessary for a full-time worker to afford their basic needs today. I ask that you amend this bill to provide a $17 minimum wage by 2026, a small incremental gradual increase just like states across the nation are doing. Thank you again for your time. Raising the minimum wage here in Hawaii helps workers and it helps small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. National Federation of Independent Business, Ms. Pavlicek.
Aloha, my name is Melissa Pavlicek. I'm testifying on behalf of NFIB, the National Federation of Independent Business. We are comprised of nearly 1,000 small businesses here in Hawaii. They're often the smallest of businesses with fewer than 10 employees. No one has a greater incentive, responsibility, or the ability to lead the economy than Hawaii's small business owners. The small businesses play a major role in the economy. We respectfully ask you not to advance this bill at this time for the reasons you've heard from many other testifiers. Thank you.
Thank you. Hawaii Workers Center, Jun Shin.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, Jun Shin with the Hawaii Workers Center. We are in support of Senate Bill 676, but with amendments. The Workers Center appreciates your willingness to reject austerity by hearing a bill to enact a minimum wage increase. But $12 an hour in 2022 is not enough to address economic hardships felt long before the pandemic by working class and low-income families. To begin to bring some relief, we are asking for a $15 increase by 2022 to make up for the increases that should have been made as cost of living went up until it reaches $17 an hour by 2026. These increases should be gradual rather than enacted at one time so small businesses can manage. And if healthcare costs are a concern, then we should also consider looking at the feasibility of creating a state universal healthcare system. But most importantly, gradually increasing it lets workers start feeling that boost in their wages, allowing them to pay the bills and use what's left over to save up or spend on local businesses. This is the thank you that essential workers truly deserve. And for our brothers and sisters who are currently unemployed, furloughed, or have yet to be recalled, please also consider reopening safe, direct, in-person unemployment services so that they too will get the relief that they deserve. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Shin. Chair will note for the record that we have received 181 testimonies, written testimonies in support, 22 in opposition, and 15 providing comments. I would also note that we will continue to accept written testimony on the three bills today, actually, until midnight tonight. With that, I'll open up for questions from members. Questions from members? If not, we will proceed to Senate Bill 912. This is relating to the employees' retirement system. This authorizes a court to order the forfeiture of employees' retirement system benefits of an ERS member, former member, or retirant upon conviction of the individual for a felony related to the state or county employment of the individual. It also authorizes designated beneficiaries to receive ERS benefits upon the death of the ERS member, former member, or retirant convicted of the felony. Okay, testifiers, we have Common Cause Hawai'i, Sandy Ma.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Common Cause stands on its written testimony in support of this bill. This bill is not about retribution. This bill is about restoring ethics in government. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have testimony from the Employees Retirement System, Mr. Thomas Williams.
Chair Taniguchi, Vice Chair Ihara, I'm Tom Williams, the Executive Director of the Employees Retirement System. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to testify in relation to Senate Bill 912, in large measure to support the intent of the bill and to mention again our primary concern, not so much as it relates to the member or retired or former member who may be required to forfeit benefits that are accrued in ERS as a result of their having been convicted of a felony related to their employee. But we're more importantly concerned about the implications for the beneficiaries, perhaps if those implications in particular are unintended. I believe that your committee, when considering a measure somewhat similar to the present one, had voiced its concern about the potential impact of the forfeiture of benefits on behalf of beneficiaries, particularly spouses, children, and the families. And we share that particular concern and have offered language in the context of our testimony that would address that particular impact were it deemed to be unintended in some respects. So with that, I would like to thank you again for the opportunity to testify and be willing to, of course, answer any questions that may arise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. For the record, I'd note that we also had 7 people in support and 1 person submitting comments. With that, we'll proceed to questions from members. Any questions? No? Questions? Okay. If not, We'll proceed to the next bill, Senate Bill 1275. This is relating to public employees. It requires each state government branch to establish a shared leave program for state employees. It precludes state government branches and counties that have a shared leave program from prohibiting shared leave sharing between employees of different departments or bargaining units because of administrative infeasible. Allows a public employee to designate beneficiaries to the employee's unpaid vacation allowance and wages through a statement that is not verified or written. Okay, Senate Bill 1275, we have from DHERD, the Department of Human Resource Development, Director Riker Wada.
Aloha, Chair Taniguchi,
Aloha.
Vice Chair, members of the committee. Again, Riker Wada from the Department of Human Resources Development. We are testifying in opposition to this bill. I should note that, as stated in the current statute, the leave sharing option actually already exists, and this is just an extension of that. It's seeking an extension of that. I think what the bill currently lacks is a process that would need to be coordinated between all of the executive branch jurisdictions and agreed upon. And this is because different executive branch departments and jurisdictions, primarily I believe the Department of Education and the University of Hawaii, have different leave banks and different rules associated with those, as opposed to the executive branch. Additionally, what is not envisioned in this particular measure is any budget that's tied to the work that would be involved there. And so this would primarily be for staffing, for IT necessities, as well as security and hosting for any type of system that would be working with a shared leave bank. Additionally, what this doesn't envision is an appeals process, which would need to be formalized again across all the executive branch jurisdictions. The last thing I'd like to mention, and this is elaborated a little more on in our written testimony, but is that there's a possibility that there will be unintended financial implications if something like this was to be implemented. As of right now, there's no real data regarding who is accessing the leave and who's donating leave currently in currently existing leave banks. And so I think one of the concerns would be, depending on who is donating and who's leaving and how that time is calculated, it potentially can have larger financial implications for the state in terms of costs and unintended use of costs. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I believe we also had 3 other testimonies in support and one other testimony in opposition. Okay, with that, are there questions from members on this bill?
I had a question. For
Senator
the
Ihara.
DHERD Director, Riker?
Yeah.
Could you give a specific example of a financial, I guess a negative financial impact or unintended financial impact?
Sure, Senator. So one of the things that most of the leave banks allow is pretty much anybody who has over or who doesn't want to use their leave, they can donate it to these leave banks. So for instance, if an office assistant was to donate, 10 hours of leave to a leave bank, and then the director of DHERD was to access that. Basically what's happening is the state is, the employee is giving up 10 hours at a smaller rate, and the employee is then being paid that same 10 hours at a much higher rate. And again, so without the information on who is accessing and who is not, I think that's the concern, is that potentially you could have a much larger cost for the state in terms of leave sharing.
This is, so you mean paper cost? I mean, you're talking about, would there be an actual dollar cost? I know the hours to hours, and is there like would there be how would it reflect on paper in terms of a net plus or minus in dollars? would it get to the dollars part, or is may not be unfair that someone who earns, $12 an hour, and has 5 hours leave, or, and they donate it to someone who makes, way more than that. I'm trying to see how, hour to hour, is there an example of how you might actually have a fiscal impact other than the fairness thing? There may be, but go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Senator. Yeah, so I think your example is exactly what it would look like, right? So let's say somebody who's making $15 an hour donates 10 hours of leave, right? So that's $150 worth of leave. If someone who's making $30 an hour then accesses that leave, then the state is paying that person in that amount, right? They're paying $300 for that leave. And so, and that's real dollars, right? Because that's something that someone would be accessing if they were short on leave. So the person is foregoing a smaller amount and the state is paying out a larger amount.
Or at least the state would be losing a larger amount.
Correct.
Because
right.
the state doesn't pay out for it, the state just loses because the other person doesn't come in to work because they're using the other person's leave, right?
That is wrong.
Yeah, so technically I think the state would lose maybe value, financial value. Okay, thank you. Thanks for example.
Further questions? If not, I guess Chair had some questions. So Riker, currently we have, I guess, leave share in various departments. My understanding was that it was more of a kind of a pool type situation, monetary pool, where, like you said, if somebody was getting paid $15 an hour, and they had 10 hours of, leave that they could put into that bank or whatever, right? And then somebody who had $30 an hour would use some of that, but not, could use some of that, but would be limited not by equal hours, but by how much that thing was worth, right? That's my understanding, but I'm not that sure about that.
From a similar concept came up to the legislature. I want to say it was 2 years ago. And we have done more research then. I think that's the case with some departments and not all. I also am not sure, and I think there are different concepts associated with, again, like I mentioned, the DOE and the University of Hawaii. And so I think that's why we're really not sure, and it would require a lot more work than just changing the statute. There would have to be a larger coordination between, the large, the executive branch and the DOE, the university, possibly HHSC, if that's what the legislature is intending. And again, if those leave banks are different, then I'm not sure exactly how that would be merged together.
I see. So if you had an employee who moved, like we're talking about, across departments and across the bargaining units and stuff. So if the person left their current, I guess, department and went to a department that did not have leave sharing, then they would lose that, or would they'd be able to withdraw it, or it's probably.
My understanding is if an employee in one jurisdiction, they donated leave and then they went to another jurisdiction, they wouldn't be able to withdraw it. It sits with the jurisdiction that they donated to.
I see. I think that's kind of what we're trying to address, I guess, through this bill, So, go ahead.
I think the concern, and again, I'm not sure about this year's bill, but I think the concern that came up that spurred the last legislation was just even within the executive branch, where one department couldn't, an employee from one department couldn't donate to an employee in another department. So let's say DHER to budget and finance. And so that was kind of the concern. But again, the same hurdles, challenges still exist. And so, like I said, I think in concept, the concept of leave sharing is fantastic. But again, just in terms of the structure of this particular measure, I think we would be asking for is if the legislature did want to do this, would be something with, for instance, a budget that was associated with this, or staff that would be able to run this, as well as, like I mentioned, an appeals process that would be envisioned in order to really flesh this out.
Knowing that you're a very creative person, if we provided you, if we put in like an appropriation amount, and we can kind of work on what that estimate might be, and maybe we made an effective date, maybe like say January 2023. Would you be able to develop something by then, or would it be just too hard?
I think with that type of time frame, I think it's something we definitely could do. I would have to talk with, for instance, ETS, just to figure out what those costs actually might look like. But timing wise, I think that's probably a doable timeline.
Okay, that's kind of what I was kind of thinking based on some of the testimony that you provided. So,
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yeah.
Is it, my understanding is that when, like vacation, I guess, when a legislator or an employee moves from one department to another, and they bring, let's see, what is it? I know in where you have to transfer funds. Is there a situation where you have to actually transfer dollars from one department to another because the employee moves and takes vacation from one, let's say, I think it happened in the Senate, that goes to another department. I think the Senate had to transfer funds to cover the vacation at the new jurisdiction. Is my understanding correct?
That's my understanding as well, Senator.
So that's when you're dealing, so in that case then, let's say a $15 an hour person wants to give 10 hours of their vacation time, $150 to another, someone in another department, then $150 gets transferred, I believe, and the person who makes $30 an hour can only use, it will go half as far. Is my understanding correct, or can you correct it?
So I think that riffs off your earlier question, Senator. I think depending on the department and the jurisdiction, some of them are just based on hours. So what I can disclose is I came from my job prior to being a DHERT was at the Department of Education. And my understanding from when I was there is that it's just hours that are donated. It's not a cost associated with the hours. The executive branch spans both. So it could be hours or cost associated with those hours. So that's where I think the difference is. And again, some of the challenges, some of the challenges we were talking about earlier.
Thank you.
Okay, further questions?
A young question, I guess.
Go ahead.
Conversation. So let's say right now the guy who gives $30 an hour, right? We're going hourly or vacation, whatever hours. But the guy who uses them is making $15 an hour. It's almost the same thing what you're saying right now. Right now what's happening when we give share at the end of the year or whatever, we give anonymously, we share or donate our vacation or whatever, and they're going to use it for people who need help, maybe medically or long-term out or whatever. There's not a dollar amount on it. We're just giving our hours. But, you're concerned about, I understand you're concerned that person with the lower pay might be using, that's only hours. I don't understand. How is that going to justify the big loss? That's the point you confused me right now. So he's saying the person with $15 who uses the person with $30 vacation is, can you clear that up with me? I don't understand if it's hours.
So Senator, you actually bring up a good point. So the opposite is also possible as well. So for instance, if someone who's making $30 an hour donates, 10 hours of leave, that's approximately $300, right? They're donating. So if someone who is making $15 an hour and uses it, they're only using, $150. So in that particular situation, the department or jurisdiction or state, they will save money as well, and that's also entirely a possibility. But I think the substance of my testimony is we don't know, and so we don't know who's using, who's donating, and I think that's important to figure out what the actual cost associated with the donations as well as the cost associated with the actual usage of leave share.
Yeah, I think in discussing this with my staff, I think we we're saying that, it's more likely that people at a higher rate of pay would donate hours as opposed to people at a lower rate of pay. And so in some ways, this does save if you go by hours, it does save the state some money. But like you said, we don't know that for sure, right? So we probably need some time to at least kind of look into it and see how the current programs in different departments are going. But anyway, further questions from members? Okay. In that case, we'll recess the public hearing. We'll go into a meeting room and thank you. This is the Committee on Labor, Culture, and the Arts. We just finished a public hearing on 3 bills, and we are now in decision-making on those 3 bills. We'll begin with Senate Bill 676. This is relating to the minimum wage. Chair's going to recommend we pass with amendments, just making technical, non-substantive amendments to the bill. Any discussion? If not, Senator Ihara?
We're voting, Labor Committee members, we're voting on the Chair's recommendation to pass Senate Bill 676 with amendments. Chair Taniguchi.
Aye.
Senator Ihara votes aye. Senator Chang.
Aye.
Senator Keohokalole.
Aye.
Senator Favela.
Reservations.
Reservations. The recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Senate Bill 912, this is relating to the employees' retirement system. Chair recommend we pass with amendments. We will clarify that upon the death of the convicted member, the designated beneficiary would receive the benefit to which the member, former member, or retirant would be entitled under this section. Secondly, we would amend to provided that a designated beneficiary convicted of a felony based on the same set of circumstances as the member, former member, or retirement would receive no benefit under this section. That's to include people that, the family members that, or the beneficiaries that knew about this act by the member. We'll defect the date to July 1st, 2050 and make other technical and non-substantive amendments. Any discussion? Senator Favela? No? Okay, if not, Senator Ihara.
Members of the Labor Committee, we're voting on the Chair's recommendation to pass Senate Bill 912 with amendments. All members of the committee are present. So I will ask if there are any objections or reservations to the Chair's recommendation. Otherwise, I'll cast an aye vote for all members present. The recommendation is adopted.
Okay. Thank you, members. Senate Bill 1275, this is relating to public employees. This is the leave sharing bill. Chair is going to recommend we pass with amendments. Somewhat technical, but we'll retain the 6-month service requirement for eligibility in HRS 78-26B1. will retain the 2-year lack of disciplinary record for sick leave abuse for eligibility in HRS 7826B4. We'll add a new section to Part 4 for an unspecified appropriation amount for expenditure by DHERD for the purposes of this act. We will extend the implementation of this section to January 1st, 2023. We will also defect the effective date and make technical and non-substantive amendments. Any discussion? If not, Senator Ihara.
We're voting on the chair's recommendation to pass Senate Bill 1275 with amendments. Any objections or reservations from any of the members present? Otherwise, I'll cast an aye vote for all members present. Recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. I failed to mention that we would wanted to thank, in our joint hearing, we had a ASL interpreter who joined us. Her name was Erica Peary. We didn't really I forgot to thank her for her service today, and just wanted to do that before we ended today. So without any other discussion, if not, thank you. We're recessed.